The morning sun cast long shadows across the White House lawn as Barack Obama adjusted his tie one final time. Today was different from his usual diplomatic meetings. He was heading to Buckingham Palace for what palace officials had described as a routine state visit. But something in the British ambassador's tone had suggested otherwise. Obama had visited the palace before during his presidency, but this invitation came months after he had left office. The request was unusual, almost mysterious. Queen Elizabeth II herself had personally extended the invitation through diplomatic channels, mentioning only that there was a matter of historical significance she wished to discuss with him privately. As Air Force One touched down at Heathrow Airport, Obama gazed out the window at the familiar London skyline. The city always reminded him of the weight of history, the layers of time that seemed to press down on every stone and street corner. Michelle had wanted to accompany him, but the invitation had been specifically for him alone, which only added to the mystery. The drive to Buckingham Palace was quiet. Obama's security detail coordinated seamlessly with their British counterparts, a dance they had performed many times before. Yet something felt different this time. The British officers seemed more formal, more reserved than usual. Even his longtime friend and liaison officer, James Morrison, appeared unusually serious. "Mr. President," Morrison said as they approached the palace gates, "I should mention that today's protocol will be slightly different. Her Majesty has requested a very specific arrangement for your meeting." Obama raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "You'll be escorted by members of the Queen's Guard rather than the usual palace staff. It's quite rare, actually. The last time this happened was—" Morrison paused, seeming to search his memory. "Well, I can't recall when it last happened." The massive iron gates of Buckingham Palace swung open with their familiar creak. Obama had passed through these gates before, but today they seemed more imposing, more significant. The palace loomed ahead, its cream-colored facade catching the afternoon light. Tourists pressed against the railings, cameras flashing. But today Obama barely noticed them. His mind was focused on the unusual circumstances of this visit. As the car pulled into the palace courtyard, Obama saw them waiting. 4 members of the Queen's Guard stood at attention near the entrance. Their red tunics were immaculate, their black bearskin hats perfectly positioned. These weren't the ceremonial guards that tourists photographed, standing motionless outside the palace. These were active-duty soldiers, and Obama could tell from their bearing that they were among the elite. The car came to a stop, and Obama stepped out onto the ancient stones of the courtyard. The sound of his footsteps echoed off the palace walls. The lead guard, a tall man with sharp features visible beneath his ceremonial hat, stepped forward. His movements were precise, military in their exactness. "Mr. Obama," the guard said, his voice carrying a slight accent that Obama couldn't quite place. "I am Sergeant Thomas Blackwood, of Her Majesty's Guard. I have been instructed to escort you to your meeting with the Queen." There was something in Blackwood's voice that caught Obama's attention. Not disrespect, but a weight, as if the man carried knowledge that pressed down on him like a physical burden. Obama had met thousands of military personnel during his presidency, and he had developed an instinct for reading them. This man was different. "Lead the way, Sergeant," Obama replied, falling into step beside the guard as they walked toward the palace entrance. The other 3 guards fell into formation around them, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance. As they walked, Obama noticed that they weren't taking the usual route through the palace. Instead of heading toward the staterooms where he had met the Queen before, they turned down a corridor he had never seen. "Sergeant Blackwood," Obama said as they walked, "have you been with the Guard long?" The question seemed to strike something in the man. Blackwood's step faltered for just a moment, so briefly that anyone else might have missed it. But Obama had learned to watch for these micro-expressions during his years in politics. 23 years, sir," Blackwood replied. "My father served before me, and his father before him. 3 generations of my family have protected the crown." "That's quite a legacy," Obama observed. "Your family must have seen a lot of history." "Your family must have seen a lot of history." Again, that almost imperceptible pause. "More than most people would believe, sir." They continued walking through corridors lined with portraits of long-dead monarchs and nobles. The palace seemed quieter than usual, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Obama had been in enough tense situations to recognize the feeling, but he couldn't understand why he felt it here, in what should have been a routine diplomatic meeting. As they walked deeper into the palace, Blackwood began to speak again. His voice lower now, almost conversational despite the formal setting. "Mr. Obama, may I ask you something?" Obama was surprised by the question. In all his years of diplomatic visits, he couldn't remember a guard ever initiating a conversation beyond the strictly necessary. "Of course," Obama replied. "During your presidency, did you ever encounter information that made you question everything you thought you knew about history, about the world?" The question was so unexpected that Obama stopped walking for a moment. The other guards stopped as well, maintaining their formation but clearly listening. Obama studied Blackwood's face, trying to read the man's intentions. "That's a very interesting question, Sergeant." "Why do you ask?" Blackwood's jaw tightened slightly. "Because what you're about to learn today will do exactly that, sir. And I wanted to prepare you, out of respect for what you've done for your country and mine." They had reached a heavy wooden door that Obama had never seen before. It looked ancient, its surface worn smooth by centuries of hands. Blackwood produced an ornate key from his uniform and inserted it into the lock. The mechanism turned with a sound like distant thunder. "Mr. Obama," Blackwood said, his hand on the door handle. "Before we go through this door, I need you to understand something. What you're about to see, what you're about to learn, it's been kept secret for longer than either of our countries have existed. The Queen has decided that it's time for that to change, but the knowledge comes with a burden." Obama felt a chill run down his spine. In his 8 years as president, he had been briefed on classified information that would have shocked most Americans. He had made decisions based on intelligence that revealed the world to be far more complex and dangerous than most people imagined. But something in Blackwood's voice suggested that all of that was merely the surface. "What kind of burden?" Obama asked. "The burden of truth, sir. The real truth about why our two nations have always been allies, even when it made no strategic sense. The truth about why certain historical events unfolded the way they did. The truth about what we've been protecting all these years." Blackwood's hand remained on the door handle, but he didn't turn it. The other guards had moved closer, forming a tight circle around Obama and their sergeant. Their faces were grave, and Obama realized that whatever lay beyond this door, these men had seen it before. "There are things in this world, Mr. Obama, that exist in the spaces between official history. Things that governments know, but never speak of, not even to their closest allies. The Queen has decided that you need to know about one of them." Obama's mind raced through possibilities. During his presidency, he had been briefed on classified military programs, secret diplomatic initiatives, intelligence operations that could never see the light of day. But this felt different. This felt ancient, primal in a way that modern secrets never did. "Why me?" Obama asked. "Why now?" For the first time since they had met, Blackwood smiled, but it was a sad smile, weighted with knowledge and regret. "Because you're one of the few leaders in the world who has proven that they can handle impossible truths without being destroyed by them. And because what's coming next, the challenges your successors will face, they'll need to understand what we've been dealing with all along." The corridor around them seemed to grow darker, as if the shadows were pressing in from all sides. The portraits on the walls looked down at them with painted eyes that seemed to hold secrets of their own. Obama felt as if he were standing at the edge of a precipice, about to step into a world he had never imagined existed. "Sergeant Blackwood," Obama said slowly, "before you open that door, I need to know one thing. Can I trust you?" The guard's expression grew solemn. "Sir, my family has been keeping this secret for 3 generations. We've given our lives to protecting it, and to protecting the world from the consequences of it becoming public knowledge. You can trust me with your life, because in a very real sense, that's what you're about to do." Obama nodded. He had learned to trust his instincts about people, and every instinct he had told him that Thomas Blackwood was exactly what he appeared to be. A good man, carrying an impossible burden. "Then open the door," Obama said. Blackwood turned the handle, and the ancient door swung open with a sound like a sigh. Beyond the threshold lay a staircase, spiraling downward into darkness. The air that emerged from the opening was cool and carried a scent that Obama couldn't identify, something old and earthy and somehow alive. "After you, Mr. President," Blackwood said, gesturing toward the stairs, as Obama stepped through the doorway and began his descent into the depths of Buckingham Palace. He had no idea that he was about to learn a truth that would change not just his understanding of history, but his understanding of reality itself. Behind him, the 4 guards followed, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls like the heartbeat of some ancient creature stirring to life. The staircase seemed to go on forever, winding deeper and deeper into the earth beneath the palace. As they descended, Obama noticed that the walls were no longer the ornate plaster and wood paneling of the palace above. Here, the walls were stone. Old stone that looked as if it had been cut and fitted by hands that had been dead for centuries. "How far down does this go?" Obama asked, his voice echoing strangely in the narrow space. "Deeper than most people would think possible," Blackwood replied from behind him. "The palace was built on a very old foundation, sir. Much older than the official records indicate." As they continued their descent, Obama began to notice carvings in the stone walls. They were faint, worn smooth by time, but he could make out symbols that looked almost familiar but not quite recognizable. They reminded him of something he had seen before, but he couldn't place where. "Sergeant," Obama said, pausing to examine one of the carvings more closely, "how old are these symbols?" "The scholars who have studied them believe they predate written history as we know it," Blackwood replied. "But they tell a story, Mr. President. A story that your government and mine have been trying to understand for longer than either of our countries have existed." Finally, after what felt like an eternity of walking downward through the narrow spiral staircase, they emerged into a chamber that took Obama's breath away. The room was vast, its ceiling disappearing into darkness above. The walls were lined with shelves that stretched up beyond the reach of the electric lights that had been installed to illuminate the space. And on those shelves were books, documents, artifacts, and objects that seemed to span the entire history of human civilization. Obama stood in the center of the vast underground chamber, slowly turning to take in the magnitude of what surrounded him. The room felt alive with history, every surface covered with artifacts that seemed to whisper stories of ages past. The air itself felt heavy with knowledge, as if centuries of secrets had settled like dust on every surface. Sergeant Blackwood moved to a control panel near the entrance and adjusted the lighting. As the illumination increased, Obama could see the true scope of the collection. Ancient scrolls sat beside modern computer terminals. Medieval weapons were displayed next to what appeared to be scientific equipment from various eras. Maps covered entire sections of wall, but they showed coastlines and continents that didn't match any geography Obama recognized. "What is this place?" Obama asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is the archive, sir," Blackwood replied, walking toward the center of the room. "It's the most complete collection of hidden history in the world. Every major government knows it exists, but very few people have ever been allowed inside." As Obama moved deeper into the chamber, he noticed movement in the shadows near the far wall. A figure emerged from behind one of the towering shelves, and Obama was surprised to see that it was Queen Elizabeth II herself. She was dressed simply, without the formal regalia he was used to seeing her wear during state functions. Her expression was grave, and she moved with a purpose that seemed at odds with her advanced age. "Your Majesty," Obama said, inclining his head respectfully, "I have to admit, this isn't what I expected when you invited me for tea." The Queen's expression softened slightly, and she approached him with measured steps. "Mr. Obama, I apologize for the deception, but what we need to discuss could never take place in the formal rooms above. This conversation requires the security that only this place can provide." She gestured for him to follow her toward a section of the chamber where several chairs had been arranged around a large wooden table. The table's surface was covered with documents, photographs, and what appeared to be ancient texts written in languages Obama didn't recognize. "Please sit," the Queen said, settling into one of the chairs with the careful movements of someone who had carried great responsibility for many decades. "Sergeant Blackwood, please remain with us. Your family's knowledge will be essential for this conversation." Blackwood took a position standing behind the Queen's chair, his formal bearing unchanged but his eyes alert and watchful. Obama sat across from the Queen, feeling as if he were about to participate in the most important conversation of his life. "Mr. Obama," the Queen began, "during your presidency, you were briefed on many classified matters. You learned about intelligence operations, military capabilities, diplomatic secrets that could never be made public. But there is one category of information that has been kept from every world leader, including you. Until now." She reached across the table and picked up a photograph, sliding it toward Obama. The image showed what appeared to be an archaeological dig, but the artifacts being uncovered were unlike anything Obama had ever seen. They seemed to be made of a material that reflected light in impossible ways, and their shapes defied easy categorization. This photograph was taken in 1952, during an excavation beneath Westminster Abbey. The Queen continued. "The workers thought they were investigating damage from the war, but what they found changed everything we thought we knew about human history." Obama studied the photograph carefully. The artifacts in the image appeared to be technological in nature, but their design was unlike anything from any known civilization. They looked almost organic, as if they had been grown rather than manufactured. "What am I looking at?" Obama asked. "Evidence," Blackwood said from behind the Queen's chair, "that we are not the first intelligent civilization to inhabit this planet." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Obama felt the world shift around him, as if the foundation of everything he thought he knew had suddenly become unstable. He had dealt with shocking revelations before, but this went beyond anything he had ever imagined. "Sergeant Blackwood," Obama said slowly, "are you telling me that we've found evidence of an ancient advanced civilization?" "Not just one," the Queen replied. "Several. And Mr. Obama, they didn't all disappear into history. Some of them left behind more than just artifacts." She reached for another document, this one appearing much more recent. It was a report marked with classification levels Obama recognized from his time in office, but with additional security designations he had never seen before. This report was compiled by a joint British-American task force in 1978, the Queen said, sliding the document across the table. "It details the discovery of what we have come to call remnant sites around the world, places where these ancient civilizations left behind not just their technology, but their guardians." Obama opened the report and began reading. The first page contained a map showing locations across the globe, marked with symbols that corresponded to different types of discoveries. Some sites were marked as artifact repositories, others as energy sources, and still others as active sites. "Active sites?" Obama asked, looking up from the report. "Locations where we have detected ongoing technological activity," Blackwood replied. "Places where ancient systems are still functioning, still carrying out purposes we don't fully understand." As Obama continued reading, he felt a growing sense of vertigo. The report detailed discoveries that read like science fiction, but were presented with the dry, factual tone of military intelligence. Underground cities that showed no signs of human construction, energy sources that produced power through unknown means. And most disturbing of all, evidence that some of these sites were actively monitoring human activities. "How many people know about this?" Obama asked. "Fewer than you might expect," the Queen replied. "The circle of knowledge is kept deliberately small. In your country, the information is shared only with a select group within the intelligence community. Even most presidents are never briefed on the full scope of what we've discovered." "Then why are you telling me now?" The Queen's expression grew even more serious. "Because the situation is changing, Mr. Obama. For decades, these ancient sites have remained largely dormant, but in recent years, we've detected increasing activity. It appears that something is awakening these systems, and we believe that humanity is about to face a challenge unlike anything in our recorded history." Blackwood moved to another part of the chamber and returned with a device that looked like a cross between a computer tablet and something from a museum. The screen showed a real-time display of energy signatures from around the world, and Obama could see that several of the marked locations were pulsing with activity. "These readings are from the past month," Blackwood said, setting the device on the table where Obama could see it clearly. "Notice the pattern of increasing activity." It's as if these sites are communicating with each other, preparing for something. Obama studied the display, his mind racing through the implications. What do you think they're preparing for? We believe, the Queen said, that these ancient civilizations left behind automated systems designed to activate when humanity reached a certain level of technological development. We may have inadvertently triggered some kind of response through our advances in computing, space exploration, or nuclear technology. The weight of this revelation settled on Obama's shoulders like a physical burden. He had spent 8 years making decisions that affected millions of people. But this was something that could affect the entire future of human civilization. What do you need from me? Obama asked. We need your help in preparing for what's coming, the Queen replied. Your successor will need this information, and more importantly, the American people will need leaders who understand the true nature of the challenges they'll face. Blackwood returned to his position behind the Queen's chair and cleared his throat. Sir, there's something else you need to know. Something that will help you understand why we've kept this secret for so long. He moved to another section of the chamber and returned with what appeared to be a communication device. Its design clearly not of human origin. The device was smooth and curved, seeming to pulse with a faint internal light. This was recovered from the Westminster site in 1952, Blackwood said, handling the device with obvious reverence. It took our scientists decades to understand how to activate it, and when they did, they made contact. Contact? Obama asked, though he was almost afraid to hear the answer. Contact with the guardians left behind by the ancient civilization, the Queen said. They are still here, Mr. Obama. They have been watching us, protecting us in some ways, but also evaluating us, and based on our recent communications with them, they have decided that humanity is ready for the next phase of our development. ATM. Obama felt as if the ground was shifting beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew about the world, about history, about humanity's place in the universe, was being rewritten in real time. What kind of guardians? He asked. Blackwood activated the device, and the chamber filled with a low humming sound. The device began to glow more brightly, and Obama could see that symbols were appearing on its surface, symbols that seemed to write themselves in real time. They call themselves the custodians, Blackwood said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. They were left behind to guide human development and to prepare us for eventual reunification with their parent civilization. The device in Blackwood's hands began to emit a series of tones, complex and musical but unlike any sound Obama had ever heard. The tones seemed to create patterns in the air, almost visible vibrations that made the chamber feel alive with presence. Mr. Obama, the Queen said, her voice filled with the weight of decades of carrying this secret. The custodians have requested to speak with you directly. They have been monitoring your career, your decisions as president, and they believe you may be one of the key figures in helping humanity navigate the transition that's coming. Obama looked around the chamber, at the accumulated knowledge of centuries, at the evidence of civilizations that had existed long before human history began. He thought about the responsibility he had carried as president, the decisions he had made that affected millions of lives. But this was something beyond anything he had ever imagined. What do they want to tell me? Obama asked. Blackwood looked at the Queen, who nodded slightly. They want to explain why the ancient sites are awakening, what humanity can expect in the coming years, and what role our species is meant to play in a much larger cosmic community. The device in Blackwood's hands pulsed with increasing intensity, and Obama could feel something changing in the air around them. It was as if the chamber itself was preparing for something momentous. Mr. President, Blackwood said, and for the first time since they had met, Obama could hear emotion in the guard's voice. What you're about to hear will change everything you believe about humanity's past and future. Are you ready? Obama looked around the chamber one more time, taking in the impossible collection of hidden knowledge that surrounded him. He thought about his daughters, about the world he wanted to leave for them and for future generations. He thought about the oath he had taken as president, to protect and defend not just his country, but the principles that made human civilization possible. I'm ready, Obama said. And as the words left his mouth, The device began to speak. The device in Blackwood's hands began to emit a sound that was simultaneously mechanical and organic, like the voice of a vast intelligence speaking through technology that bridged the gap between the ancient and the impossible. Obama found himself leaning forward, drawn by something in the tone that seemed to speak directly to a part of his mind he didn't know existed. The voice, when it came, was unlike anything Obama had ever heard. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the chamber with words that formed themselves not just as sounds, but as concepts that appeared directly in his consciousness. Barack Obama of the human civilization, the voice began, and Obama felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that whatever was speaking knew him, had been watching him, studying him. We greet you across the vastness of time and the complexity of existence. We are the custodians, left behind by those who came before to guide and protect the emerging consciousness of your species. Obama found his voice, though it took tremendous effort to speak in the presence of something so fundamentally other than human experience. Who were those who came before? And how long have you been watching us? Your species measures time in years and centuries, the voice replied. And Obama could sense something like amusement in its tone. We measure time in the rise and fall of civilizations. Those who left us behind ascended to a higher form of existence, approximately 12,000 of your years ago, when the last great ice covered much of your northern continents. The Queen leaned forward, her expression intense. Mr. Obama, this is why we needed you to hear this directly. What they're about to tell you explains so much about human history that has never made sense to scholars and archaeologists. Your species was not the first intelligence to emerge on this world, the custodian continued. The civilization that created us achieved technological mastery beyond your current understanding. They learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level, to harness energy from the fabric of space itself, to communicate across vast distances instantaneously. But more importantly, they learned to transcend the limitations of physical existence. Obama felt his worldview reshaping itself in real time. Are you saying that an advanced human civilization existed 12,000 years ago? Not human as you understand the term, the voice replied. Your species is descended from them. But evolution and time have changed you significantly. You are, in a sense, their children, left behind to grow and develop while they moved beyond the need for physical form. Blackwood stepped closer to the table, the device glowing brighter in his hands. Sir, this is where it gets complicated. The custodians have been guiding human development for millennia, but always, from the shadows. They've influenced key moments in our history, helped us avoid certain catastrophic paths, and prepared us for eventual reunification with our parent civilization. Quote, unresented reunification? Obama asked. Your species has reached a critical point in its development, the custodian explained. You have developed nuclear weapons, space travel, global communication networks, and artificial intelligence. These achievements mark specific milestones that we were instructed to monitor. When all of these conditions were met, we were to begin the process of revealing the truth to your leaders. The Queen reached across the table and picked up another document, this one appearing much older than the others. The pages were made of a material that looked like parchment but felt different when Obama touched it, almost warm to the touch and somehow alive. This document, the Queen said, was given to British intelligence in 1897 by the custodians. It predicted the timeline of human technological development with startling accuracy. 2 world wars, the development of atomic weapons, the space race, the invention of computers, and the internet. All of it was foreseen and, to some extent, guided. Obama read through the document, his amazement growing with each page. The predictions weren't vague prophecies but specific technological and social developments described in detail. The document even predicted the emergence of global terrorism, climate change, and social media with uncanny accuracy. You've been manipulating our development? Obama asked. And for the first time since the conversation began, he felt a surge of anger. Not manipulating, the custodian replied, and Obama could sense something like regret in its voice. guiding, protecting. Your species has a tendency towards self-destruction that required careful management. Without our intervention, you would have destroyed yourselves with nuclear weapons during your Cold War period. We prevented that outcome by influencing key decisions made by leaders on both sides of the conflict. The implications of this revelation hit Obama like a physical blow. Which leaders? Which decisions? President Kennedy's choice to pursue negotiation rather than escalation during the Cuban Missile Crisis was influenced by dreams we provided to him in the nights leading up to the crisis. Premier Khrushchev received similar guidance. Both men thought they were following their own instincts, but we helped them see the path that led away from global annihilation. Obama felt the world shifting around him again. He thought about his own presidency, the decisions he had made during times of crisis, the moments when he had felt guided by instincts he couldn't fully explain. "What about my presidency?" he asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Your decision to pursue diplomacy with Iran rather than military action was guided by us," the custodian replied. "Your choice to avoid deeper military involvement in Syria, your efforts to address climate change, your approach to managing the financial crisis. In each case, you followed instincts that we helped to strengthen." Obama sat back in his chair, feeling as if the foundation of his entire sense of self had been shaken. "So nothing I did was really my own choice?" "Everything you did was your choice," the voice replied. And now Obama could hear something like compassion in its tone. "We cannot control human behavior, only influence it. The decisions you made came from your character, your values, your intelligence. We simply helped you see the paths that led toward the outcomes that would best serve your species' development." Blackwood set the device on the table, where it continued to pulse with soft light. "Sir, this is why the Queen wanted you to hear this directly. You're about to become one of the few people on Earth who understands the true nature of human history and our place in a much larger story." "What happens now?" Obama asked. "Why reveal this to me now, after keeping it secret for so long?" "Because the time of hidden guidance is ending," the custodian replied. "Your species has reached the point where you must be told the truth about your origins and your destiny. The ancient sites around the world are awakening because they are preparing for the return of your parent civilization." The Queen leaned forward, her expression grave. "Mr. Obama, they're coming back. The original civilization that created the custodians and guided our development. They're returning to Earth. And humanity needs to be prepared for first contact with beings who are, in essence, our distant ancestors." "When?" Obama asked. "The process has already begun," the custodian replied. "The increased activity at our sites around the world is part of a preparation phase that will culminate in direct contact within the next generation of your time. Your children, or their children, will be the first humans to meet their creators face to face." Obama thought about Malia and Sasha, about the world they would inherit. The challenges he had worried about during his presidency: climate change, nuclear proliferation, economic inequality, suddenly seemed like minor problems compared to preparing humanity for contact with an advanced civilization. "What can we do to prepare?" he asked. "Education," the Queen said, speaking for the first time in several minutes. "Gradual disclosure of the truth to world leaders, and eventually, to the public. The establishment of international protocols for first contact. And most importantly, the development of human consciousness to a level where we can interact with our ancestors as equals rather than as children. Your species has tremendous potential," the custodian added. "You have developed art, music, literature, philosophy, and compassion in ways that your ancestors never achieved. In some ways, you have exceeded their expectations, but you have also developed capacity for destruction and hatred that concerns them." Blackwood picked up the device again, and Obama could see that its light was beginning to fade. "The custodians can only maintain contact for limited periods," Blackwood explained. "But they wanted you to understand one final thing. The choice of how humanity responds to the return of your parent civilization will determine the future of your species." The custodian's voice continued, now noticeably weaker. "You can choose to embrace your heritage and join a galactic community of conscious beings, or you can choose isolation and remain confined to this single world. The decision will be made by your generation and the next." Obama felt the weight of this responsibility settling on him like a mantle he had never asked to wear. "What do you need from me specifically? Help your successors understand what they're dealing with," the Queen said. "Begin the process of preparing humanity for a truth that will reshape everything we believe about ourselves and our place in the universe, and help us establish the foundations for a peaceful first contact." The device in Blackwood's hands grew dim, and the presence that had filled the chamber began to fade. "Barack Obama," the custodian's voice said, now barely audible, "you have proven yourself to be a leader of wisdom and compassion. Your species will need both in the years ahead." As the voice faded completely, the chamber fell into silence. Obama sat in his chair, staring at the now quiet device, trying to process the magnitude of what he had just learned. The Queen and Sergeant Blackwood watched him carefully, understanding that he needed time to absorb the revelation that had just changed his entire understanding of reality. "How do I even begin to process this?" Obama finally asked. "The same way you processed every other impossible challenge during your presidency," the Queen replied. "One step at a time, with careful thought and good advisors." Blackwood carefully placed the device back among the other artifacts in the chamber. "Sir, you're now part of a very small group of people who carry this knowledge. It's a burden, but it's also an opportunity to help shape humanity's future." Obama stood up from the table and walked to one of the walls lined with ancient artifacts. He studied the objects that represented thousands of years of hidden history, each one a piece of evidence for a story so vast that it challenged the foundations of human understanding. "What about the American people?" he asked. "Don't they have a right to know the truth?" "Eventually, yes," the Queen replied. "But disclosure must be managed carefully. Humanity has a tendency to panic when faced with paradigm-shifting information. The truth must be revealed gradually, in a way that allows people to adjust to new realities without losing hope or resorting to destructive behavior." As they prepared to leave the chamber, Obama took one last look around at the archive. He understood now that he had become part of a story much larger than any political career or national policy. He was now a guardian of knowledge that could transform human civilization, and the responsibility felt both overwhelming and strangely familiar. "Sergeant Blackwood," Obama said as they began their journey back up the spiral staircase, "you said earlier that you've never heard anything like this, but you've known about the custodians for years." "What did you mean?" Blackwood paused on the stairs, his expression thoughtful. "I meant that I've never heard them speak with such urgency, sir. In all the years my family has been communicating with them, they've always seemed patient, as if they had all the time in the world. Today, for the first time, I heard concern in their voice. Whatever's coming, it's coming faster than they expected." As they emerged from the depths of Buckingham Palace back into the familiar corridors of the royal residence, Obama felt as if he were returning from another world. The portraits of long-dead monarchs seemed to look at him differently now, as if they too had carried secrets that shaped the course of human history. The Queen walked with him to the palace entrance, where his security detail was waiting. As they shook hands, she looked into his eyes with an expression of shared understanding. "Mr. Obama," she said, "you now carry knowledge that has been held by only a handful of people throughout human history. Use it wisely." As Obama's car pulled away from Buckingham Palace, he stared out the window at the London streets, at the people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their understanding of human history and their place in the universe was about to change forever. He thought about the conversation he would need to have with his successor, about the delicate process of preparing world leaders for revelations that would reshape civilization itself. The weight of the secret he now carried felt heavier than any decision he had made as president. But as he watched the city pass by outside his window, Obama realized that he also felt something else. Hope. Humanity was about to discover that they were not alone in the universe, that they were part of a larger community of conscious beings, and that their future held possibilities beyond anything they had ever imagined. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with difficult decisions and careful diplomacy. But for the first time in his life, Barack Obama understood that he was part of a story that extended far beyond the boundaries of Earth, and that understanding filled him with a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. The real work of his life was just beginning.